Alright guys, so this video we're going to be doing a little front end upgrade on the Jeep. And the upgrade we're going to be installing is a cast iron axle on the front, because the original axle, well, let's just say that stock it does alright for cutting grass and maybe a light little pulley swap. When you start really off-roading with it, running over rocks, stumps, and boulders and stuff, and railroad irons, well, it kind of takes its toll on it. You can see I've already had to weld in some rebar on the tie rod because the tie rod did bend. But if you really look at it, I bent this axle back straight, but now after driving it a good while, it's kind of bent back and it's like has some positive caster or negative or whatever it is. Here on the other side, you can see it's also having some positive or negative caster or whatever. And I've also had to actually weld this area back together because I did break that open. And yeah, the whole thing is just really getting worn out and I'm tired of dealing with it. And this front tire has some negative camber in it. This side seems fine, but maybe that's just a spindle. This bolt right here is my steering stop, and when you turn the spindles all the way, they are stopped by hitting the bolt, and it keeps all the pressure off tie rods and steering gears from stripping out. But anyway, its time is up. It needs to be upgraded. All right, so usually I wouldn't buy something like this brand new. I would try to make do with what I have, but here's the thing. The thing is, in my scrap buckets of steel over there, it would take a lot more time and effort trying to fabricate something, weld a piece of angle iron across there, and weld on the inside, and try to bend it back straight. And I would be here for a couple of days trying to do that, losing my mind trying to make it look good and function right, whereas it'll be cheaper and better to just buy a whole new one. So now what I'm going to do with the Jeep is strip the entire front end, wheels, spindles, tie rods, everything. So that center pin that holds the axle in is right there. And luckily the winch had enough clearance. But there's also the bolts on the bottom that I didn't realize were there until just now, that is holding the winch in. So I gotta undo those and this axle should drop out. And also just doing a little inspection, there's a big crack right here. It's kind of hard to see, but yeah, there's definitely a crack right there. Now you can see on this side where I had to weld part of that crap back together, and that's all open up and crap. Also, just a little quick tip I'm going to point out to some of y'all. You got this piece here with the little grease zerk that fits inside of here, that fits all loose and sloppy and crap and gives you a horrible steering spindle slop. Well, I actually welded this piece inside of here all the way around on both sides, and that took out all the slop, and I was still able to grease it. All right, so time with some crisp fix, out with the old broken one, and in with the nice new one. And if you're wondering about weight, I say that weighs about, I don't know, 5 pounds. This probably weighs like 10 to 15. So yeah, much, much stronger. This axle actually has, you know, the slot actually drilled out, so you don't have to put a sleeve in it. All right, so I'm actually gonna reuse the stock bushing that came out of the old one because a new one didn't come with one, and fits in there absolutely perfectly. No play at all. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, so the front axle is fully bolted in. All right, so I just got everything cleaned, and now we're gonna install this back into the brand new cast iron front axle. All right, so upon inspection, the wheel on this side on the old axle had a bunch of negative camber because the spindle was bent, but now with the new axle, you can see with this square, it is neutral, no positive or negative camber. Here on the other side with the old axle, it was relatively neutral, but now with the new cast iron axle, it actually has a little bit of positive camber. So I think what I'm gonna do is actually bend this spindle up to make it 0 on each side, and then I'll weld some gussets in. All right, so I ended up having to grind a area out right there, so that way I could bend this spindle down just a little bit. And the way I'm driving this thing is probably going to bend the spindles again. So what I have here is a piece of a leaf spring. This is like 1/4 inch really hard steel. So yeah, these spindles are going to be indestructible. All right, so we got both sides fully welded on both sides, on the back side, I should say. Yeah, they're about 10 billion degrees. These spindles are now strong enough to withstand a nuclear explosion and a demolition derby. So yeah. All right, so I checked both sides and they are absolutely perfect. All right, so the only other thing I gotta do now is figure out my steering stops because, you know, that wheel just goes way too far over, and you know, well, steering to the right is about perfect, but yeah. All right, so to make my steering stop, I'm getting one of these old pieces from a mower deck, because they have these little pieces at the end of them, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with them next. So there we go, we got my steering stops in there. I know it looks kind of ugly, but it does work. That's kind of what I had to whip together. And you can see now when I steer, the wheels stop on the axle. All I gotta do now is paint it, which we'll do that tomorrow. All right, so just like other professional YouTubers, I'm gonna be doing a giveaway. So the first to comment that cat's name is gonna win this free, perfectly good front axle on the original off-road lawnmower that's on this channel. And don't worry, there'll be more giveaways coming up. We got old wheel bearings, old worn out bushings, broken drill bits, bent brake rotors, an old 4x4 actuator that doesn't work from a Kawasaki Prairie. We also have old Arctic Cat 400 crankshafts with wrist pins stuck in the rod with butchered up ends, cracked pistons, broken flywheels, useless heads. So yeah, there'll be a lot more giveaways coming up soon. So we got it all painted finally. So we're gonna let this dry for a couple hours and then remove everything. All right, so you heard how loud this pipe was. I actually remade this pipe right here in another video, and now it's kind of more straight shot, and it's a lot louder than what it kind of used to be. And it makes a lot of pop, pop, pop noises, and I'm kind of getting tired of it. So what I'm trying to do here is fabricate this original exhaust into a kind of a muffler or whatever. Yeah, it has a good sound to it. It's not completely stock and it's not super loud and obnoxious.